1 fucking minute and 12 fucking seconds of damn logos. Ewan McGregor is the most high-profile actor after Tom Hanks, so that means he's the bad guy. Also, the top of this ring reads Pius XVI, but given that Latin isn't the biggest fan of you, shouldn't this be spelled Pivis?
The Ring of the...
Also, movie takes sinfulness of having a character blatantly explain what's going on one step further by just having a narrator explain it, causing me to think I accidentally put on a History Channel documentary.
Shocked by the sudden death of this progressive and beloved Pope.
We never learned what was progressive about him, so I'm going to pretend he said women can be priests, in case you confused it with Geneva, Laos.
L'accélérateur n'a jamais été prévu pour générer de l'antimatière.
CERN actually had to make a fact sheet in response to this movie explaining that they don't perform secret experiments with antimatter. Check it out at angelsanddemons.web.cern.ch. Fun science fact, protons sound exactly like fireworks. Only one person stationed in the room where they're going to store the antimatter instead of like 10. These scientists have just harnessed the power of the will-o'-the-wisps. Retina scanner or paper towel dispenser. Modern retinal scanners won't work on a dead eyeball. The alarm is only going off in the room where the container should be stored, and the only reason anyone knows it's missing is because Science Lady just happened to come and visit. A CERN-wide alarm that put the facility on lockdown could have prevented the antimatter from even leaving the station. Movie spends way too much time showing me Tom Hanks in a Speedo swimming, in case you confused it with Cambridge, Arizona. Also, in case you missed the first movie, Tom Hanks' character teaches at Harvard. They really want you to know he's Harvard material.
A swim might help your jet lag.
Discount My Dinner with Andre. Also, how did the Vatican representative know that he'd be at the pool at 5 in the morning? Does Langdon make his secretary come in at 4? Run by his office first to put a post-it note on the door?
Shouldn't you be in Rome?
This guy says some bullshit about how the Vatican called him in New York to go find Robert Langdon, but it's not like Robert is hiding out or anything. Why not give him a call first?
It's an ambigram. It's the same image, forward and backward. Now that's common for a symbol like a yin and yang or a swastika, but that's a word.
If we loosen up the definition of letters, then yes, that's a word. Also, a palindrome can be read forwards and backwards. An ambigram can be read from different perspectives.
That Illuminati ambigrammatic symbol has been considered a myth.
Yeah, but if someone can just make an ambigrammatic symbol and send a fax of it, it's not like it's Bigfoot or a UFO.
It was only going to be revealed when the Illuminati had amassed enough power to resurface and carry out their final goal.
Okay, but given that this is something anyone with Adobe Illustrator skills could make, it's much more possible that this is some internet troll f***ing with you.
I wrote a book about it, which is why you're here.
The Art of the Illuminati by Robert Langdon.
Part 1.
Holy shit, guys, at least try and make the explaining all the things subtle, jeez.
4 cardinals were kidnapped from their quarters inside the Vatican sometime between 3 and 5 a.m. this morning.
So we decided to call on the world's top symbologist because the kidnappers drew a cool picture.
Why me?
Didn't we go over this 2 minutes ago?
I wrote a book about it, which is why you're here.
But it did make you... It was formidabile.
This guy represents the Vatican City in the UN, and he somehow blanks on the word formidable.
If the Illuminati have returned and are in Rome, we will hunt them down and kill them.
What the f***? Why would any person say that out loud, especially to an outsider? In case you confused it with the Sistine Chapel, Las Vegas. If the Cardinals wash off the hand stamp, they can't re-enter.
It is as much a sin to offer flattery as to accept it.
Sin counter? We need a review of that last statement.
It is as much a sin to offer flattery as to accept it.
We think that sentence is a sin, so ding that.
People will think that
what we tell them to think.
Hardly any tales have been told about Pope Charles Foster Kane II, probably because his thoughts weren't original.
Pope Pius IX's great castration.
Or, as we've come to know it, Pope Pius IX the extended cut.
1857, Pope Pius IX felt the male form would inspire lust, so he took a hammer and chisel and unmanned hundreds of these statues.
10 sins for explainy McExplainy pants.
Are you anti-Catholic, Professor Langdon?
No, I'm anti-vandalism.
And most likely anti-castration.
That canister contains an extremely combustible substance.
An antimatter explosion would be based on the destruction of particles and not combustion, but it's not like she's a physicist and would know that.
And what might cause it to fall out of suspension?
The battery going dead, which it will, just before midnight.
CERN apparently buys their batteries from the Dramatic Steak Store. Nothing built to last more than 24 hours or your money back.
Vatican City will be consumed by light.
Aren't we glad we got Robert Langdon to tag along in this episode of Survivor Vatican City? He says exactly what nobody is thinking.
Those are the exact words the kidnapper used.
Liar.
Jeez, you guys don't even read your own history, do you?
Well, if they did, you wouldn't get the opportunity to explain everything.
A shining star at the end of the path of illumination.
Sure, most people don't understand the path of illumination, but why give any clues?
The path of illumination is a hidden trail through Rome itself. The 4 churches along it may be where he intends to murder your cardinals.
The bad guys may be kidnappers and murderers, but at least they have some sense of fair play.
I'm not surprised this ghost has returned to haunt us.
In case you weren't yet sure Ewan McGregor is the bad guy, here he is saying he's not surprised a 350-year-old cult/legend is behind the nefarious deeds.
Of course, but he could be anywhere.
Well, if it's wireless and they were still able to view it, it's likely they could access its IP information and see which access points it's connecting to, which would give them some indication of its location. But they called the symbols guy, not the IT guy, to help with their investigation.
When the image on the screen goes dark, you'll have a more specific idea of the camera's location.
So this is a wireless battery-powered camera that is part of their surveillance system, and cutting the power won't interrupt the view of the camera or its connection to the network. Got it?
That I may grant you access to the archives. There is a question I'd like to ask you first. Do you believe in God, sir?
I'm an academic. Faith is a gift that I have yet to receive.
This moment is more character revelation for Langdon than a satisfying answer for Patrick's question.
If this path really leads to the Church of Illumination, that may be where they've hidden the antimatter.
Isn't that what Langdon already said? Or at least implied? Is this really new information, or are we just trying to make this character not totally worthless?
Vittoria Vetra.
This movie is intelligent, attractive brunette for Tom Hanks to quasi-chastely flirt with.
Richter has started to turn off the power at various grades. It'll be back on in a minute.
In case they forgot the conversation they all had 10 minutes ago.
Then some unknown Illuminati master sculpted 4 statues.
Good thing the walk to the archives is long enough to dump some much-needed Illuminati exposition onto the character who invited herself along. Also, did Ewan McGregor grant access to Robert Langdon, or everybody who decides to take a walk with Robert Langdon whenever they get an idea?
We must evacuate Vatican City.
People need to start talking about evacuating Rome.
Don't panic if you feel lightheaded at first. It's normal to feel a little lightheaded.
Going into the air-sealed room caused Langdon to forget that he said that 30 seconds ago.
I'll be just outside the door.
Watching you, Mr. Langdon.
But the hot chick from CERN? She's okay in my book. What's your name again, ma'am?
Is that Mickey Mouse?
Yeah, it's a long story.
And he never tells it, so it doesn't matter.
Until I thought, what if it's Roman numerals?
D-I-I-I.
D3. Galileo's third text.
Langdon comes to the conclusion 503 might mean Roman numerals, and they have something to do with Galileo, even though he simply saw the number 503 on a bunch of Illuminati letters. Also, how did discussion in the Illuminati get to the point where they just referred to 3 particular Galileo books as the 3 Ds? It's almost like you could have simply said D3 without all the bullshit involving 503, and no one would have been smart enough to figure that out anyway.
But what was this one?
This is how we got the word out. This is the truth, not what the Vatican forced him to write.
Why did they keep this book then and not burn it? Why is it in the archives?
Do you need help with Latin?
Sure.
He doesn't. Also, not only is she a bioentanglement physicist, she's also fluent in Latin.
It's in English.
English?
It's a language of radicals like Shakespeare and Chaucer.
Chaucer wrote in Middle English, which is pretty f***ing different from the early modern English of Shakespeare.
Sorry, Professor, no time.
Mr. Guard forgot how to guard. Also, if she can get away with that, why not just take the whole pamphlet? Did they not search you after spending time in the archives?
Don't look so anxious. We're supposed to be married.
Nonsensical undercover operation so the 2 leads can flirt.
That could be the demon's hole in the poem.
That would be a relief. The demon's hole evokes a much worse thought in my mind.
Where was he originally buried?
As always, in Dan Brown land, the totally right answer is wrong because there's another place that fits the description because of history and Also, Langdon's been doing this kind of thing for so long. How many amateur mistakes is he going to make figuring out these riddles? You always think about how things were back in the day, not the way things are now. Fucking
Did Raphael Santee ever design a chapel with an ossuary annex and an angel figure commissioned by the Catholic Church?
I'm sorry, I can only think of one.
Well, give him the answer, asshole. What did you think? If you didn't come up with more than one, that wouldn't satisfy the parameters of the question? Also, convenient English-speaking architecture tour guide and expert on Raphael is very, very convenient.
Back to the Vatican, you can't.
There's nothing worse than these types of characters in movies. The lead detective who, with 0 other options, decides not to listen to the protagonist because they got one thing wrong. What's he going to get accomplished sending his guys back to the Vatican? Pretty much nothing, other than giving the story the antagonist needs to kill the first victim. This church is being renovated, creating ample obstructions and making the scene more suspenseful. Haha, you stole that one from Top Secret. But also, who does the kind of work that's being done in this chapel, takes their boots off, and then leaves them high up on a platform? Even though that circular tile was completely flush, they were able to remove it without a tool of some kind. Good thing Langdon isn't scared of enclosed spaces anymore. That childhood affliction was only convenient for his adventure in the Da Vinci Code. Aren't these executions supposed to be public? If Langdon wasn't so super clever all the time, there's no way they would have found this guy.
Not until the smoke is white.
This just in. Movie begins running out of ways to explain things to the audience, so they outsource the smoke explanation to a reporter.
Bernini?
He worked for the church.
In addition to being a bioentanglement physicist and fluent in Latin, Vittoria is also an amateur expert on 17th century Baroque sculptors.
Are you sure this time?
Even though Langdon did actually find the guy when no one else would have, this guy is still being an asshole.
Can we go any faster?
Not unless you want the full attention of the world press.
It is not international news when police cars travel quickly through major world cities. Langdon conveniently looks at his watch just as he is standing over his next aha moment. Massive crowd isn't spilling over into the crime scene. Also, this guy got murdered in the middle of the crowd, and no one f***ing saw it. He's one of the cardinals that might become pope, so surely one of these papacy stands would recognize him. Also, no one's trying to help him. Geez, some Catholics. There are no normal shirts in the Vatican or surrounding areas for Langdon to wear.
He took an injection every day, but no one knew that.
Someone knew.
Yes, f***ing Obi-Wan right in front of you just said he did.
An overdose could cause massive internal bleeding and brain hemorrhages.
Don't you guys have a couple more churches to find? You're trying to solve the murder of the last pope? Time is of the essence and
It's now 9:15. How quickly can you find the next church?
Probably 46 minutes is my guess. By the way, this is the bullshit the Illuminati apparently went through to find their meeting place. Some asshole had to figure out all these clues to find this place, when like 2 would have been enough probably. Also, this might be the most unsatisfying treasure hunt ever put in a film. Galileo says to start at a tomb, and the rest of it is figuring out where statues are pointing. It's exactly like navigating using Apple Maps. Tinsel technology.
What sort of signs?
I don't know. How many Cheerios is a full bowl? I can play this game too.
If the Holy Father was given an overdose of tinzaparin, what signs would his body bear?
Bleeding of the oral mucosa. His tongue. Post-mortem, the blood congeals and turns the inside of the mouth black.
In addition to being a bioentanglement physicist, fluent in Latin, and amateur expert on 17th century Baroque sculptors, Vittoria is also a doctor who specializes in symptoms of medicinal overdoses.
I'm looking for a reference to fire.
Seraphim, meaning the fiery one?
Yeah, but right above that is the Italian word which actually means fire.
There's no power. There's no oxygen. The door is electronic.
This seems like a design. So if someone is down there normally and the power goes out, the only option is to suffocate?
So I joined the Aeronautica Militari, flew helicopters.
Convenient piloting experience is convenient.
The walls are lead-lined. There's no signal.
The design seems intentional at this point. Was the Vatican Archive designed by the Illuminati? No. Bulletproof glass. More like bullshit-proof glass, am I right? Power comes back on right after Langdon saved the day. Basically as a joke, but more of a representation as to how much time we just wasted. Power goes out in certain areas when our characters happen to be working in those areas.
Ich habe auf meinem Bildschirm hier der Zone 97 keine Lichtreaktion.
Does it really take that long to turn off power in different sections of Vatican City to find this location?
Vatican laws are there to protect this church. And it's in that spirit that I command you to break one of them now.
Confusing hypocritical statement is somehow convincing.
Santa Maria della Vittoria. You know it?
Yes, I do.
I understand that these churches are old, but they would have fire and life safety systems in them at this point, right? Do all the churches in Rome have basements where one might fight the rancor, or is it just the 2 we've seen so far?
Are you okay?
By speaking English, Firefighter assumes that Langdon is not Italian. That's racist.
So when those journals passed the border, they became my property.
So Vatican law states that any object that crosses the border automatically becomes property of the head of the Swiss Guard? I'll keep that in mind.
It's a sin to kill with pain. It's a sin to kill without reason.
It's a sin to kill, period. It's an actual sin, along with stealing, committing adultery, and egregious plot holes.
What direction is that?
West, they think.
It's amazing to me that this little scavenger hunt for the path of illumination couldn't have been conducted entirely on the internet. Surely there are pictures of all these things and a way to figure out what direction these statues are pointing. Not to mention who sculpted them and who made the building and all those fun Robert Langdon facts. Feels like they could have found all the missing wannabe popes and the bomb with 30 minutes of Googling after they read the first clue. This cop is horrible at copying. Robert went through all the trouble to help that guy breathe. Then 2 seconds later, there are people helping him save the guy from drowning. I'm not saying something like that wouldn't happen in real life. I'm just saying what a waste for a movie that's 2.5 hours long. The cardinal says he was being held in this church, which is a pretty well-known church in Rome, where people visit often. So how is this guy able to hold 4 cardinals captive there and come and go with them all throughout the day?
The wireless signal from that camera can still reach the Vatican.
The real mystery here is what the f*** is this magical camera that is able to broadcast video from a mile away using Wi-Fi, Z-Wave, GSM, fairy dust?
They're pointing to it.
The Illuminati, Ewan McGregor, continues to leave a trail of historical breadcrumbs to the vial of antimatter, even though they, Ewan McGregor, definitely do not want it found.
See if you can find a flashlight.
You know, on those dead cops who are luckily here and who paid their lives so Robert Langdon could solve an Illuminati puzzle.
It's a pentagram.
Langdon always solves things faster when there's a time crunch. The canister contains volatile antimatter that can cause a nuclear-sized explosion, and we're pretty sure it's in this room. So let's just throw everything around haphazardly and not worry about the disastrous consequences.
You're still alive because you have no weapon, and they didn't ask me to kill you.
Well, it's a good thing this murderer and torturer and kidnapper for hire has some ethics.
He's the one! He's got a gun!
The whole movie for Stellan Skarsgård has been to show how inept he is in order to cast suspicion on him as the main bad guy. It would almost be forgivable if he was the bad guy. But nope, it's all for surprise, which, if you pay attention to the runtime of movies, you'll see that there's 30 goddamn minutes left in this f***ing thing, and there's no way he's the bad guy.
The grid is still cycling.
Even though that hasn't been helpful for the last 45 minutes of this movie.
Myrtle, there's an emergency. I'll take her up alone.
When Patrick got the advice from his adopted father to go into the Air Force, initially he was unsure of the idea, but later was persuaded by the man who would eventually write this film. Parachutes typically aren't included on helicopters because it's almost impossible for a helicopter pilot to bail without the helicopter going out of control. If that explosion would have taken out half of Rome on the ground, then it still would cause significant damage even if it came from that high in the sky, right? The wind and blast didn't blow his parachute off course in any way, and he went straight back down. Patrick survives this. Not only does he survive this, he still looks pretty good, even after the physical buildings of the Vatican beat the shit out of him.
What happened here tonight transcends our laws.
Does it?
I can't believe only one cardinal wants to do things by the book.
And the candidate need only be an ordained member of the clergy, present in the Sistine Chapel at the moment of his election.
This is some serious House of Cards bullshit.
What if he was trying to give me this key?
No, you definitely pried that key from his cold dead hands, didn't tell anyone about it, and got lucky.
And you conjured up an old enemy from the past, the Illuminati.
And somehow, someway, figured out all this bullshit about the path of illumination, even though you are a man of God, and probably couldn't figure that out with access to the archives. Hell, Robert Langdon barely could figure it out.
You found the ancient brands in the papal vaults and put them to use.
Once again, I don't know why Illuminati artifacts would be stored in the papal vaults, but it makes those archives a convenient one-stop shop for this whole ludicrous story. How delightfully convenient for Patrick's evil plan for the Swiss guards to storm in immediately after he brands himself.
Illuminatus!
Seriously, this guy couldn't resist trying to brain Ewan McGregor in front of a whole bunch of guards with their guns out? Are you telling me that Obi-Wan was told the Cardinals wanted to see him in the conclave, then Woody and Laura Lovan reviewed the tapes, managed to get the Academy Award nominee for Best Supporting Actor from the movie Shine to look at them, and he went back and told everyone before Mark Renton could walk all the way there?
Para su inmediata canonización y santificación.
But for some reason, the thousands of people in St. Peter's Square who saw that one cardinal bleeding to death on the fountain did not find anything wrong with that story.
He chose the name Luke.
It's too bad Patrick couldn't grow up, become Alec Guinness, and teach him about the Force.
Nobody can get away with this! Not a priest, or a cardinal, or a freaking pope!
Underneath the mango tree, my honey and me.
We will destroy your 4 pillars.
What are the 4 pillars?
Tradition, honor, discipline, excellence. It was said that you would destroy this and not join them!
Somebody later told me it gave people hope.
Don't touch it.
Don't touch it! It's the history eraser button, you fool!
Okay, yes. We're bored. We're all bored now. But has it ever occurred to you, Wally, that the process that creates this boredom that we see in the world now may very well be a self-perpetuating, unconscious form of brainwashing?
The stairs are out!
Honey, you're on my fingers.
Oh.
Most days I wish I never met you. Because then I could sleep at night. I didn't have to walk around with the knowledge that there was someone like you out there. I didn't have to watch you throw it all away.
No change, I can change, I can change, I can change.